My next guest on a whim bought a rundown off-the-grid cabin near Index, Washington, and he wrote a book about fixing it up. Cabin Off the Grid: Adventures of a Clueless Craftsman is the story of those renovations, but it's also a love story and a tale for those who know what it's like to bite off a bit more than you can chew. Please welcome to New Day author Patrick Hutchison. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
first of all, how did you end up buying this cabin in the woods?
Yeah, I mean, I was in my mid-20s and kind of feeling those pressures of like, I should probably start being an adult sometime soon. Buy a house or get married or have kids or something.
Fair enough.
And real estate, like buying a place, seemed like the most straightforward idea. It didn't require other people to be involved. But I could not afford a house. And so I started searching farther and farther outside of Seattle, where I was living, and started seeing pictures of cabins and became really enchanted with this idea of having a cabin in the woods. Could also not afford a cabin. And so I sort of tabled the whole idea, and then one night I was on Craigslist. House had been robbed, and I was looking for stuff from our house that maybe was on Craigslist.
Whoa.
And on a total whim, I just typed cabin in to the for sale section.
Yeah.
And then this little place popped up for $7,500. And I was like, I have to go see this.
Boom.
And yeah, 2 days later, I owned it.
And did you always know you wanted to share your renovation journey with people?
It was at a time when I was working as a copywriter. I had this dream of being like a real cool sort of travel journalist type person, but I sort of just ended up writing advertising copy. And so in those early days, writing about the cabin, after a long weekend of work or something, was kind of a way to keep that like writing passion alive. It was just something that I could really dig into and write about, something that interested me.
So it's not necessarily the book like a how-to guide. So how would you describe it?
Whatever the opposite of a how-to guide is. I've certainly had no experience going into it, but learned a ton about fixing places up, and I think more than that, really found a connection to that place and to that kind of style of living and sort of escapism and that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, why do you think it's so enchanting, this like off-the-grid lifestyle?
I don't know. I mean, I spent a whole book trying to explain it, and I still don't know if I really get it, but I do think that something really kind of magical happens when you get into a very small, intimate space without, phones or Wi-Fi or cell signals or all that kind of stuff. And you really get, especially with other people, and you really get to connect with them and wonder about things. I don't know how many times we were just locked up in the cabin with like a wood stove and just wondering about stuff that we otherwise would have just like looked up and
look at that view.
Yeah.
I mean, that's stunning.
It's a nice place to wander around and forage for salmon berries like that.
What?
And plenty of projects to keep me busy at home.
Yeah, doing a lot of the work yourself. I mean, that's got to feel really fulfilling.
Yeah, it was quite the experience to go through that and really felt so compelled, I think, to follow that curiosity of tackling those building projects.
So amazing. And obviously, it's sounding like the experience really hooked you in, but what are you up to these days? Like more projects, more cabins going on Craigslist?
Yeah,
What's
so the end of that book, spoiler alert, I guess, is that I do leave my job to pursue a career building cabins and carpentry, and I've since built 2 cabins.
Wow.
And currently work full-time building tree houses for a local company, Wild Tree Woodworks.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What was your biggest surprise, I guess, throughout this experience that maybe shocked you that you loved or didn't love?
Biggest surprise? I think that I just kind of kept coming back to it, and I think I'm maybe sort of a procrastinator at heart, and so
same.
I think
it's
that
okay.
I think that's the thing that really kept nagging at me is like, I cannot stop doing this or thinking about it, and in those early days, it was like every time I would drive by a hardware store, I would like have to go inside and just wander around.
Wow.
Just because I was so sort of taken with the process and the tools and, all that kind of stuff.
And any advice for people that are maybe hopping into this line of work or wanting to do something like you just did?
I think just following your curiosities and being you know, giving yourself the time and space to be compelled to do other things that might feel, you know, silly or irresponsible, because I'm certainly glad that
Look
I
at
did.
that. That's beautiful.
Yeah,
Are
a
you
lot of snow
kidding?
up
That
there.
winter wonderland. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much for being here and
thank you.
sharing about your book and your experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.